He's golfing right now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, if you're present, please say so. Brad?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
Dave?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
Nate? Nate is absent, and I am present. We have a quorum present. First item of business is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, June 24th.
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Bob, seconded by Matt. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those are approved. We always reserve time for members of the public to address the RDA. Can I entice you to step forward?
I think I'll make something up. It's depressing right now.
All right. Item number 6 is our training segment. Kristen.
All right, another Victor Dover video.
All the best towns are walkable. Designed for pedestrian safety and comfort can be an afterthought, considered, if at all, only after all of the automobile-related decisions are already made. So we start with walkability as a baseline, and then work our way out to all the other considerations. The streets that work best are more than mere transportation corridors. They're addresses, places where people want to be. Great streets come in all shapes and sizes, and an immense variety is possible. But we find there are 5 basic features always present in people-first streets. Features that dependably attract people on foot. Features you can demand in your town. First, they're shaped. The street space is like a public room, with the roadway and sidewalk its floor and the buildings its walls, and sometimes its ceiling, formed by the tree canopy. Second, they're comfortable. In most climates, that means shaded in the summer. Street trees and architectural elements like porches, arcades, and awnings moderate the elements. Third, they're connected. The streets that feel like people habitat are usually hooked into the larger network, linked to the rest of the town. Next, they're safe. That means you aren't stressed out about getting run over by a vehicle. And you have what Jane Jacobs once called eyes on the street. The street isn't faced by blank walls, but by doors and windows and porches and balconies and storefronts. Last, the streets where people really like to be are memorable. They make lasting impressions because beauty surrounds us and human creativity is on display in architecture and art and signs and landscape design. Walkable street design. It's number 9 on my list of town planning stuff everyone needs to know. For more information, check out the Dover Coal YouTube channel or dovercoal.com. Or read the book John Massengale and I co-wrote, Street Design, The Secret to Great Cities and Towns.
You want me to keep going? Street trees?
I'm curious, because you've given a lot of thought to Watertown and worked in the city for quite some time from a planning standpoint. So what are some of the challenges we've got in terms of having that walkable downtown? Where can we improve?
We mentioned this in 2014 in our plan, back when we first started, and it was the street trees and the green. If you stand at the top of Main Street, like at Church Street, and look down, there's not a tree to be found at all. It's very hardscape. And adding some softscape, there aren't many canopies, but those are tricky because they have to be kept up and maintained, and you don't want them to look tacky. But the street trees is a huge one. You have some benches, but they're not as inviting to sit on because there's nothing soft around them, you know. That would be the big one.
Is there anything that prevents us from putting trees? Isn't there something about utilities or something? I don't know if that's a rumor.
I was just going to say, I'll let Melissa take that one.
Sure, that'd be good, yeah.
So this is a topic that we talk about all the time at Historic Preservation Commission and at Main Street Board. Our downtown has not been reconstructed since about 1960, I believe, so we're certainly due. And we have the Main Street Bridge project coming in 2026. But as of right now, resurfacing or reconstructing the remainder of Main Street is not on the DOT's radar. The city has said multiple times that the challenge with trying to retrofit trees into our existing sidewalk would be near impossible. We already have a lot of issues with faulty electricity downtown. None of the lights on the bridge work right now. Underneath that concrete stamped strip is where the majority of the utilities run. But to try to put in trees into the ground would, the Parks Department feels that would be setting us up for failure just because the setting isn't prepped right. So someday when our street is reconstructed, we see other towns where they have the street trees. There's different methods that the planners go through to kind of set the stage for those root balls to be able to survive and for the tree to flourish. We've even talked about, the idea of having trees in large pots on Main Street. They'd have a life cycle, obviously, and that's something we're open to. There'd be some expense involved in that. But one of the chief complaints we hear about the downtown is that it's just not pedestrian friendly. The traffic moves very fast through the downtown. So if there's ways when we do have the street reconstructed that we could do some curb bump outs, maybe some slight speed bumps just to kind of, it's 9 blocks long and the cars just go. And also, find too when we're walking, if it's in the middle of the day, it's almost hard to hear the person next to you talking if the traffic is really moving fast, just because there's so much road noise. So we have a ton of concrete, we have no shade, and we have narrow sidewalks east of the bridge, which those are all factors that make it hard to put up tables and make it someplace someone wants to sit and enjoy themselves. But we're trying. It's much easier west of the bridge, obviously, because the sidewalks are wider.
And everything you just said, a city to the east of us, about 12 miles away, has gone through.
Yes.
And so everything you just said, I would mimic that in terms of
Traffic
not a
calming.
speed bump, but like a crosswalk elevated,
Yep.
bump outs, so you can do a little dining. And the other things I think about as I drive down and I look overhead, there's a lot of wires, a lot of above ground electric. It's not buried underground. To get that cleaned up when the road is put through, I talked with Jane Ellen about that a little bit. It seems like that would be quite the feat. But it seems to me that would be the time to do it, if there is a time, and just get that cleaned up.
Right.
So we have really nice black decorative lamp posts, and then we've got a We Energies sorry, ugly stone looking from 1968, 3 feet away from it, it seems counterproductive to me, and they're ugly. Jane Ellen indicated a bit because it's a highway, or a state highway, we're not able just to go in and do as we see fit.
In a perfect world, so after the town square is built, after the library is built and the bridge is done, the city did say that would be the time to mill and resurface Main Street, but we don't want to do it before all the heavy equipment is through. Jane Ellen, our city engineer, did say that because of 5G technology, municipalities are being encouraged to retain their tall posts, but I think it would be really great for Watertown to budget to get rid of the old 1960s tall posts, remove the early 90s short posts and do one uniform new lamp post that is kind of in between for height. Even trying to do Christmas decorations is a huge challenge because we have the black decorative posts, which if we try to do something that projects, box trucks will hit it.
Yeah.
And the tall posts, where we had decorations on those years ago, there's no longer electricity halfway up the pole to be able to mount decorations. So it would be nice to do a whole new decorative lamp post that is, taller than the short ones, maybe not as tall as the tall ones, and then we look so much cleaner and more uniform.
And then at that point, having a tree or some softscape would really just fit.
We're even trying to look at the signage that's downtown right now. There's a lot of parking signs on rusted metal poles and just things that I notice that maybe hopefully not everyone notices, but each time something like that is made to look nicer, I think it improves the feeling downtown. So we're working on the buildings, but the streetscape, the Main Street program doesn't have the means to make any immediate repairs with that.
Because the east side of the river downtown is in a low-income census tract, there might be an opportunity to get a CDBG grant for the street lighting or something like that in the future, public services. I've looked into that. Someone proposed a few years ago to make more of a plaza or a boulevard on one of the side streets. And we looked at lighting at that time, so that might be an opportunity.
Thanks, Melissa. Any other discussion on this topic? All right. Item 7, status reports. Matt, anything from the Loan Review Committee?
Not really. We're working through gathering some more financial information from the applicants. Hopefully by next meeting we'll have stuff ready to go. Did want to mention, so Rick was on the loan review team. We always had to have a council member. Is now the time to ask for a volunteer.
Should be a great time. Anyone want to volunteer?
I got a quarter.
That's right, you did. Yeah.
So it doesn't take a lot of time, and we try to do stuff as electronically as we can. Where we'll send out, basically you'll get a packet of information, credit banking stuff, but information that we can make decisions on creditworthiness, basically, of the applicants.
I've got a quarter. Could flip a quarter.
Sounds like stuff to make your eyes glaze over.
What's that?
Sounds like stuff, if I read it, my eyes will glaze over, kind of.
Maybe a little bit.
We have 4 bankers and accountant on the committee.
Yeah.
So they'll guide you.
I can just
through
sit
this.
there and,
They'll guide you, yeah.
yeah. But you're already the president, so you got extra to do, so.
I volunteered for the last thing they asked for a volunteer for, so have at it.
It doesn't take much time, he said. I've heard that before.
Well, we'll be out of money as soon as we finish these next 5.
Right.
That's true. Sure, I can do it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
No pressure.
All right, item B, design input team. Dave?
Yes, we'd like to set up the Phase 2 committee, which will kind of be making the construction decisions as they come along. And we have contacted most of these people, well, all of these people, and then a few others that we may be joining, asking to join in a bit. But I would be on it. Candy Stromera would be on it. From the city, we would have Randy Franks and, oh boy, Randy Wojtaszek.
Nailed it.
Wow, that's good. From the city. And then Brian Kahns has agreed to it, and Melissa has agreed to be on it as well. So that just the things that would come up as we're moving in more into the construction phase would be dealt with by this committee.
And would this group continue to work closely with Smith Group then?
Totally.
Okay.
They'll call meetings and ask for certain items of input when we're deciding on different features and levels of finish and things like that.
Okay. And what level of decision-making are we viewing coming out of that group versus recommendations to the board? I mean, I imagine there are probably a number of things that this group can just be the sounding board for Smith Group and give them direction, and it's pretty much in alignment with what we want to do, but,
Right, and they will, they'll hear everything first, but I think the final decision will come from recommendations from Smith Group through the design task steering committee to the RDA.
got it, okay. Great. Sounds like a great group. Anyone have any objections, or we'll just proceed if there are no objections to that? Awesome. Thanks, Dave, for taking that on again. Item C, community support and communication. Jeannie and Kristen.
Do you have things you want to say tonight, or do you?
Well, I think we got 2 articles in the newspaper. We have a third one that was submitted, and we have a fourth one in the works. Where we will be working on banners probably in the next couple of days. We'll have some ideas. And then we're working a lot on fundraising, what are the packages and what are the perks and things that people will be getting.
Yeah, that's going to be a significant investment of our time to come up with those community engagement opportunities for people, and then coming up with the collateral that we will use to present those opportunities to folks. So that we'll be spending quite a bit of time on that, as well as feeding the newspaper more stories.
And our overall approach to fundraising is to try to put together different levels of support that we can go after. So a few big gifts, some mid-tiers, still big, and then really an opportunity for anyone who wants to contribute to give something.
And I think we have a few things now. Someone had talked about a permanent bench. And I think just looking at the design as we've done is, where are some things that people could, what can we monetize, but we can't have it look like a billboard central.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be a lot of different options. And, like trees and things, so there's a lot depending on what is the final Smith Group plan.
That's where I'll look at the numbers from, but what we were hoping to do is, I think we could have one opportunity for a sizable contribution to sponsor the town square. We could have naming rights if that was something the board was interested in. Then we could have areas of also significant contributions if someone wanted to sponsor the library plaza or the interactive fountain space and the performance bowl, we'll call it, where the stage would be and people can gather, and then the riverfront plaza. Those could be significant items for contributions with naming rights. It could be the Pastor Dave Performance Bowl, if you
Sure.
want to give us a significant amount of money toward that.
No problem.
So and then we could get granular and have bricks on the wall, the retaining wall. I did get a call, and it was very exciting. I got a call from a couple last week that wants to contribute a bench in memory of someone, and they wanted to know how much. And I said, we don't have costs yet, but the comment was no wooden benches. And he said, I want it to be a nice bench. And I said, it will be a nice bench. So people are starting, a person has called and said, I want to contribute a bench. So that's, I think, a good sign.
And I think the other thing is, like last month, we had the person come about the history, and I don't think, we were conscious of it, but never looked, so maybe there's more, history sponsorships that can happen, which is a whole nother topic that can go and, if we put something granted and So things are evolving, and it's taking a little time to just let it cook. But the idea is, we'll have so much money, we won't know what to do.
That's right.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Chris, anything from the Common Council?
I can give an update on a couple of things. First one, I got some COVID stats, and these are just stats, so read into them what you will. From Friday last week to Monday, over the weekend, we had 13 new positive cases. That brought the total up to, I think, 97. And 63 people have recovered, so we got about 25-ish active cases, which is probably the most we've had since the whole thing started. Only 10% have ever been hospitalized, and no one's died in Watertown, so that's good. One of the biggest things that come out of the last council meeting was the Parks Department started a new initiative called the Cart Park Program, which is more or less just a small tow-behind trailer with park stuff in there, and they go to neighborhoods that don't really have good access to parks, like Fountain Street Apartments. They leased out a nice green space for $1 over there, and every so often they'll tow the cart park over there and let the kids over there play, and there's one over by, I want to say Clement Street, and there's another one in town too, I think. So that's a nice new program the Parks Department just put out, and we approved that at the last council meeting.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Chris? All right, very good. Kristen, Executive Director update.
Thank you. When the tanks were removed, they tested the ground under the tanks, and they did find that some petroleum had leaked. So a report has been filed with the DNR, and we're now on a path to get that cleaned up through Sigma, the group that's doing the Phase 2 testing. The other testing will be, the Phase 2 testing that is to take place under the Daily Times site hasn't been scheduled yet, but we did get, I got the results or the report back from where they drilled holes to test for the petroleum. So that's underway. That the tank removal cost, we had, that would be covered by the grant that we already received. Any other remediation beyond that, we have to see how much that is, and it wasn't part of the the remediation isn't part of the Phase 2 testing, so we'll have to see the extent of that. But all the proper paperwork was filed in a timely fashion with the DNR, and I received an email from them today with next steps, so working through that with
Any
Sigma.
anticipation if they're going to have us remove it or other means of remediation?
The contaminated soil, no, I don't know yet.
But could be a little while till we know that, and be a little while till it gets cleaned then?
They could be, hopefully not. I mean, I hope we can act as quickly as possible, because we can be doing that while we're doing the planning and the design documents this year.
Okay.
So I want to keep it moving.
Right, right.
Related to the next steps on the community engagement initiative, that was what we just talked about with fundraising. We do, one of the things that Jeannie and I have been monitoring with the help of Melissa is comments on social media. And there was a post on, if you know you're from Watertown, if you remember, Facebook page that had some negative comments, but some comments that were just from people who didn't know and they were misinformed. So we're going to keep with the frequently asked questions and keep going with some of that information. One of the misperceptions that I'll just do some sharing now so that we can either use a video clip from the Watertown TV presentation of this meeting, or we can create a new one. But somebody thought that the tax base that was lost from the buildings being torn down was significant and not being replaced. And I wanted to just share again that the collective taxes from the buildings that were torn down in a given year were approximately $25,600. That value, while significant, could be easily replaced by the development we're hoping to have on the parking lot south of the town square. which if it's between $8 and $10 million, will pay between $150,000 and $175,000 in taxes per year. So in 1 year, we're exponentially increasing the amount of property tax base that we removed in the blighted buildings that were on Main Street where the town square is going. And that's exactly what an investment like this park is designed to do in a community like Watertown. It's designed to increase property tax base on the buildings that are still there, but also attract other development. And that's evidenced by the interest that we've had from other developers and from investors who are buying buildings downtown to make investments in. So already, I think if we did a study, we probably can look at the buildings that were vacant and how they're being repurposed, and could come pretty close to recapturing that $25,000 in tax base. But we hope to recoup it exponentially on the site south of the town square.
We also put the incubator back on the tax rolls.
We did,
Correct.
and that was a $500,000 assessed value, which is more than any one of those buildings that was there. So that would be a significant amount of tax base, so good point.
So that's 15 to 16K probably on the tax roll.
Yep.
It's assessed at 500.
Sure.
And that's a conversation I have quite a bit too, whether I'm at the coffee shop or if I'm in and out of a meeting or something in town. I hear not a lot, I don't want to be dramatic, but often enough about, you guys took these buildings off the tax roll. And I just let them talk. And then I ask the question, do you know what the taxes, what the real estate taxes were generated on that whole block? And most think it's $100,000, $75,000. So there's really a misconception as to what the block did bring in. And then I talk about an $8 to $10 million proposed project, what that looks like. And then do the math, subtract the larger from the smaller, that's the increment, that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. And then usually, then they kind of settle down. But there is a sort of perception out there that we just flat took those off and it's just going to be a park. But you'll have that. So we'll just keep plugging forward and it's going to work out really well.
The design steering committee, or this task force, one of the goals that stuck out in my mind is they wanted a world-class gathering space. And we're not just creating a park, we're going to be creating a world-class gathering space. It's going to have some amazing features. The community will want to come together there. It will be energized and dynamic and vibrant, and it will be a really, really special place.
Agreed.
So that was something I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I step in? Brad mentioned, since I just got on council, I was out knocking on doors quite a bit. And if you don't have an opinion about something, you're not going to voice anything about it. But the people who did were 9-1 against everything. Nothing's communicated. They don't read the paper. I don't get the paper. Okay. And as Brad said, I heard that many times. He tore down the building, lost tax revenue. We're supposed to get, I heard this too, supposed to get a hotel come in, convention center, and a number of them looked at us and then they said, no, we're not going to do it. It's not worth it. Did that happen, or people are saying we had these guys look and say, no, we don't want to build here, forget it?
Sure, no, I can address that. At the time when we were working really hard to recruit a hotel on that site, it was probably 2015, 2016, before this RDA was formed. And then we continued to do that. But I spent at least a year, because Mayor John David asked me to let that be the catalyst. Let's get a hotel and then we'll do everything else. And so I worked on that for about a year. And at that time, hotels were hot everywhere. They were building hotels like crazy in Milwaukee and Madison and in the communities, in concentric circles from Milwaukee and Madison. And Watertown just didn't rise to that level of desirability. There was so much low-hanging fruit to develop in every other community, Brookfield, Waukesha, wherever they were building in Milwaukee and Madison, that everyone I tried to attract to Watertown was involved in Sun Prairie or somewhere else that had a much larger population or draw factor. And the one developer that we had on the line for a year was looking for investors from the community. And that was about the same time the library was working really hard to do their fundraising, but we didn't have ownership of the buildings on the 100 block yet. So he ended up walking away because he couldn't see us getting those buildings under contract and tearing them down, nor could he convince investors to participate at that time. So the timing was wrong on that project. For a variety of reasons, we just didn't get a hotel, but it wasn't because anybody came and took a look and then walked away. The market study was very strong for a hotel downtown, and it still is, even though we haven't updated it. There are hotel companies interested in Watertown, but I don't think it's the level of finish and quality that we would want on that site. And there are some that are preferring to be more close to the bypass. So there are a variety of reasons that the hotel didn't happen, but none of them were, it was timing, it was, a few other things, but I think when we finally put all the properties downtown out for RFP to developers, I had a list of developers, probably 15 to 20 developers long, that we sent an RFP for the site at the south of the town square, for the First Street parking lot, for the Johnsonville site, where Johnson Philbrotts used to be, and then for the possible development properties that WIRC owns, where Tom's Tap and Firehouse Lanes are. We sent that out to all these developers, and the response that we got was from T-Wall to build multifamily on the site next to the town square. And we are still working through that process with them. So I think now, post-COVID, we're not going to get a hotel. They're just not. Hospitality is tough right now.
It may end up being a blessing that we didn't,
Right.
if we look at it, provided we can get a really great multifamily
Right.
development on the site.
Market rate,
Right, yeah.
to be clear,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's floating out there too. What will it be? Will it be a Section 8? Is it going to be, the answer is no.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a valuable piece of real estate. Any other questions or concerns that people have heard that we could clear up with this update? Yep.
Just kind of one more that lingers is the perception that we're doing a park because we couldn't get anything else. I want to explain to people, the park was always part of the plan, the private development to anchor it.
Right.
But it's people talking about, well, the city couldn't attract this, that, and the other thing, so they're settling for a park, which is so wrong.
Right, I read that one, and that was clearly not what we've ever been about. We have two parcels of land. We have the 100 block, which is where these buildings were, where the park will go on Main Street, and then the former parking lot that isn't being used as a parking lot anymore, but from the alley or the easement behind those buildings all the way to the upper level parking lot that's next to the Globe is the development site. And there's about 3/4 of an acre of developable property, not including the town square, that we've always marketed as the development site. We're calling that 111 South Water Street. That's its address. And 111 South Water Street has always been a development site, and that's where hotel, apartment building, office development, whatever it's going to be, will go. But the town square has always been identified since 2014 as a park. Just the approach has been different. Should we go for the development first or the park first? And I think once the RDA was formed, it was, let's go all in on the park, on the town square, and that will attract other developments. And if you remember that graphic from Smith Group's presentation, that's like the catalyst in the center, and then all the development that's going on around it will happen.
Well, it just shows we got to just keep communicating and communicating and communicating.
Yep.
I think we've got a lot more. I'd like to sit down with somebody.
Absolutely,
share it, explain to me, so I can explain to people.
for sure.
Yep.
We should do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We can, I'd love to get,
Even just, I don't know how many people are watching. You probably know, but they just complain. I'd love to sit down with somebody and talk about this and this and this.
maybe we can get something on the calendar before we leave tonight.
Sure.
Okay.
On the website, we also had, from the last time, we had a lot of Facebook comments. I don't know, there's probably 20 Q&A of, you know, where are the bathrooms, you know, why is it this, what's going to happen? So they're all on the website. Under, I think it's under Q&A.
Or frequently asked questions or something, yep.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Anything else, Kristen?
The fence is up. That's our fence. I think it looks really nice. It went up yesterday.
And they did a good job of leveling the site.
I talked to the demolition contractor about that, and he wanted to meet with the fence company, so I connected the two of them, and I said, it was clearly communicated that we want the fence not on the sidewalk, but we want it on the gravel. And so they did a nice job. The demolition contractor brought those retaining wall blocks a little bit farther onto the sidewalk and protected that drop-off corner. And the fence was originally planned to follow the building footprints and go down to the river along the south edge of the park site, but they encapsulated the whole two properties, and I think that's fine for now. So that was something that happened yesterday, I guess. So,
That's good. My wife and I got ice cream at Mullins last night. They have a new one, orange chip, fantastic. But we walked down there and walked in front of it. It's very accessible, very easy to get to. It does look nice the way they cleaned it up.
good.
Very good.
Just wait till you're able to have that orange, what is it?
Orange chip.
Orange chip on a nice park bench
A nice bench.
in the town square. It's coming.
Listen to Pastor Dave do a concert.
In his
In
performance.
his pavilion.
The Zimmerman Bowl.
There we go.
It's like,
I'll list my bank account number for receiving donations.
Fund me.
test your lifeline.
Kristen, with regard to the banner on the fence, do we have built into the budget funding for that, or should we take any sort of motion tonight to approve an expenditure within a range for that kind of thing?
I think that would be a good idea. We don't have money set aside. I think we had some funds from the marketing budget, but most of that got allocated to the contract with Jeannie. So do you have any idea how much a couple of banners would cost?
We'll have to see.
A couple $100,
A little more.
maybe? 500?
I'd say, I don't,
It's a long stretch.
We're not going to do, I mean, the other thing, we might do two or something. And
Right. I
think
would
we
think
want
two along there would probably be
we want
better than one.
The win ones, not the ones that have smiles, because those just rip. And then also probably a fundraising banner at some point, or fundraising structure of some sort, so we can keep a thermometer of success.
Well, I'd move that we authorize up to $1,000 budget for this, and then if that doesn't cut it, come back.
I'd second that.
Does it have to be noticed before we do anything like that?
That's a good question. It's not noted as, it wasn't noticed as an action item, was it? Yeah, I think you're right, Chris. Yeah, so you better come back with a recommendation to the next meeting. We'll notice it. Yeah.
Unless there's a category in the budget that it would fall under.
Right. If we find funding for it in the existing budget, we're fine.
There might be some in the marketing budget.
All right, we'll dig into that.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Item 8, the June financials.
I'm sorry those weren't available earlier for review before the meeting, but they were set at your place. They just got completed today. Usually the bank statements comes pretty late in the month, so Lisa finished these up today.
Any questions?
No real anomalies that,
I had one question. On the, let's see, the operating report revenues page, I was just looking to see from comparing year-to-date actual versus fiscal year budget. The only significant piece of revenue that we're not showing as received yet is the $250,000 grant. Can you remind me what that is again?
we put a hold in there for any grants that we were going to get. I think the reason it's 250,000 is because we were hoping to use the WEDC Community Improvement Grant. But if we end up applying for one of those, it would probably go in companion to a development on that site, and it would probably end up being contributed to the private development. So the 250 was a plug number. We've applied for over $550,000 through the DNR grants that
Okay.
Smith Group helped us apply for.
Yep.
So,
And this is where those will fall in then?
Right.
If we get them, okay. Other questions? Any discussion? Anyone want to move approval?
So moved.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Financial reports are approved. Thank you. 2019 audit.
so that was emailed to you in your packet. It's a long document. I just want to highlight some items on page 11 of the actual report from Baker Tilly. There were a couple of material weaknesses or deficiencies that they identified, but these have been identified in the past. And they're probably organizational weaknesses that we have, because the first one on page 11 is inadequate segregation of duties. So right now, I bring a resolution to the board, it gets approved, I make a purchase or execute a contract, I oversee the work, I pay the bill. And the treasurer's office, the clerk's office downstairs sees that the bill is paid, and they fill out the financial reports. And they think that Baker Tilly is saying, in order to make sure that you have more oversight or more checks and balances, there should be more staff participating in this, or more segregation of duties, but it's a lack of staff that we have. And that's related to the missing key controls. That is another one. And then if you look at the comments from prior years, those were some of the same comments that they had in prior years. Just weaknesses in that, and those are things that we've been aware of, but I don't know how we fix. And, you know, at some point when the redevelopment authority grows to have a full-time staff person, maybe there's an administrative assistant too, and then there would be more eyes on things. But they weren't, I mean, there were no mistakes or errors or anything in the audit that was because we performed incorrectly. It was just, these are risks that the RDA is taking because we don't have enough staff. So, kind of structural flaws that we have because of, we're not a fully employed, you know, we don't have enough staff.
Yeah, I suppose the city, in some form or fashion, could maybe integrate some staff functions with what we need, but I don't know. I can't imagine there's a bunch of city staff sitting around either with a bunch of bandwidth saying, how can I help the RDA?
At the end of every month, I send a list of all the checks that we've written, because we don't have a credit card, and we don't pay bills electronically or use a credit card, so everything is paid by a check. And I send a list of the checks I've written from the checkbook, and if the treasurer's office or the clerk, deputy clerk don't understand what something is, they always email me and ask me. Like, I wrote the half of the White Clouds, the Sharp Corners sculpture for White Clouds, I wrote the check for $10,750 to pay half of that as a deposit when I made the order after our last meeting, and they didn't understand the note I had written was White Clouds, Sharp Corners. And they didn't know what was that. So even though there was a resolution in our meeting packet to prove that you authorized the funding, I had to call that out to them and let them know. So we have a good communication between us, and nothing is, everything is above board and everything's done well. It's just that, something to be aware of.
Well, and Elissa seems to keep a very close eye on
Yes.
the money,
Yep.
which is the biggest thing.
I have my share of stomach acid over all this stuff. Nothing is, it is a process. When a borrower borrows money from us, I have to go to 4 banks. I have to collect a check from each of the 3 banks we have our money with that are in the revolving loan, the banks that we have our lines of credit with, and get 1/3 of the payment from each of them and then deposit it in the 4th bank, and then I pay the borrower. So there probably are some better ways to do that. But they all know
Well,
me.
is there any further discussion on this or questions? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to approve the audit.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the audit's approved. Item 10, resolution authorizing a survey of the 100 block site.
Okay, thank you. These next 2 items are items that will trigger work that tips off all the work with Smith Group. They need to have the site surveyed. It hasn't been officially surveyed. They wanted to wait till the buildings came down. And then the second resolution is the geotech work. Smith Group put out 3 bids for each project and then sent me an email with all 3 bids and a recommendation and why. And I included the recommendation and why in the resolution. The Chapet Land Surveyor's bid was the low bid, but it also is being recommended for surveying the town square site because they had the best understanding of the scope as reflected in their proposal. Smith Group has experience with them, and they were the lowest cost service provider. This is not included in Smith Group's contract that you approved last month.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Is there any discussion?
And I can also add, I can vouch for Chapet Land Surveys. Where I'm at, we review their work. I actually personally know probably the person that will be working on this. And $6,000, in my opinion, is a fair cost for what they need to do out there on that site.
Which included some hydro surveying in the water,
Sure.
so.
Any further discussion? All right, if you're in favor, say aye. His name is called. Opposed, no. Brad?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Item number 11, resolution authorizing geotech analysis.
Similarly, they put out the request for proposals. There were 3. Terracon was not the low bidder. The low bidder was $4,300. Terracon was $4,600. However, they're familiar with the site because when R.A. Smith National did our analysis for not making sure the sidewalk wouldn't fall in, they subbed to Terracon. So they've done some geotech on the site already. And then the other reasons listed, they presented the best understanding of the scope and the experience that Smith Group has working with them. And they were not, the bids weren't that far apart. It was $4,300, $4,600, and I think $4,800 for this piece of it. But this is going to tell us where the rock is, where that, where that really hard rock, where that all is located, and what else is under the soil, how stable they are.
Motion to approve?
Second.
So moved.
Moved by Matt, seconded by Brad. Any further discussion?
I'll make a point to note that the caption of this resolution looks like a copy-paste from the survey resolution. So you might want to change that.
Which caption?
The caption of this resolution should be contract instead of survey, contract for geotech analysis. Right at the top,
Okay.
In the heading.
Yep,
heading, thank you.
thank you.
All right, if you're in favor, say aye. His name is called. Opposed, no. Brad?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. That's approved. Item number 12, this qualifies tonight and was noticed as our annual meeting. And at our annual meeting, we elect the chair and vice chair of the RDA. And so that's what we got to do yet tonight. I am willing to serve for another year. I know Nate is as well, but I also know we're both open to not. So if anyone would like to nominate any others, please don't feel pressured not to do so. But with that, is there any nomination? We'll take vice chair first.
I'd nominate Nate Salas for vice chair.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any other nominations? All right, then we'll take a quick vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
opposed? All right, Nate's the vice chair. Now's my chance to get out. Are there any nominations for chair?
I'll nominate Rob.
Second.
All right, thank you. Any other nominations? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
one more year to go. That's yeah, thanks, everybody. Item 13, future possible agenda items. It's not for discussion tonight, but does anyone have anything they'd like to see on a future agenda?
Chris and I just wanted to, I don't know when it's appropriate to talk about the bridge election that's going on.
Oh, yes, we were going to mention that, weren't we?
Yeah. So, right, Melissa, would you mind
This
speaking to
is going
this
to
a
go
little
back
bit more?
up under my update because I was going to mention this.
Okay, so we'll just kind of pause here on item 13, go back up to the executive director
Yeah.
update on the agenda. Okay.
Yeah, if Melissa could talk about it.
Yeah, there's a bridge, an opportunity for the public to weigh in on the bridge
Yes.
design.
Yes, there's a 7-minute video that the Wisconsin DOT put together. It just gives a little synopsis of the proposed project. But what's nice about it is that they share 4 design alternatives that they're asking the community to look at and actually render their selection. I believe they extended the deadline until July 20th for that. But we have a bunch of different civic groups in town who have collectively given their opinion on it. And then they're also asking for individual citizens to take a look at the video and to give their opinion. Where can the video be found right now? I'm not aware publicly. I know I've emailed it out to people. I'd be happy to email the link to Jeannie, and she could put it on the RDA website.
And the Facebook?
And the
Can we get it out on
Put it on our
Facebook?
Sure. I believe it's been on the Main Street Program Facebook page, but that's going back a couple weeks now.
I got an
Okay.
email from
Yes.
the chamber yesterday, so, with
So-
that video.
If you have Wi-Fi in here, you can pull it up on,
Actually, we do.
Pretty cool.
let me see if I can email it to you.
I'd also like to note that there is one member of the community who has said, we can do better.
With the bridge design?
So it would take additional funds, not the DOT, in addition to what the DOT is doing. And it didn't make the agenda here, but I want to maybe put that on the next agenda.
Okay.
Did you say it was on the Main Street Facebook? No?
I'm going to find it and I'm going to email it to you. Would that work?
Which email are you
Or
sending?
I think I emailed it to you. Well, it's still in there.
Okay.
I think the problem with voting is that you can't do it online.
Right.
I did
Where to vote.
print out some of the actual ballots. So, yeah, if we could look at the options, it might be good, if anybody wants one. And you have to put a stamp on it.
This is churning really slowly.
Well, could you email it to the board?
Yeah.
And then obviously, we can't reply to all, but we'll take it in from Kristen and then click on the link and participate. All right, thank you. Back to item 13. So one future agenda item will be, Kristen, the bridge.
Yeah.
And other ideas for future agendas? Okay. All right, let's pick our next meeting date.
So August 12th, or that would be a month from tomorrow.
Works for me.
That's a Wednesday.
I think those are better for Nate.
Nate and Bob, if we bump into Public Works.
Can we do the 19th?
The 19th? Can you check the 19th of August? That works for me.
Works for me.
Sure.
Yep.
Matt?
Fine.
Good? Bob?
Yes.
Great.
Tuesday night is tough.
Tuesday, yeah.
It's tough.
We usually end up on a Wednesday, so, okay.
6:30 or?
6:30?
Works for me.
That's a good time.
And we avoid court.
Great. All right. Very good. All right, the only item left is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.